Welcome back to Red Dice Diaries with John and Hannah.
Hi.
And today we're going to be talking about the Obliviax. Okay, so I've got to admit, until I came across this while looking for monsters to put up for our Twitter poll, I hadn't really heard of the Obliviax before, to be honest.
No, me.
And I've not found a great deal about it. I mean, we know it's in the First Ed Monster Manual 2. I know that it was in the Second Ed Monstrous Compendium 2. And I think it was in the 4th edition Monster Manual 3. But I don't have that, so what are you going to do? But anyway, look, what does it say about the Obliviax in a First edition Monster Manual 2?
It says it's an evil black moss.
Okay.
Has the power to steal memories from other people. When an intelligent creature is within 60 feet, save versus spells, or it steals memories.
Okay.
And it steals the last 24 hours, including your spells, if you've memorised spells. So I can see that being quite brutal if you've got a dirty magic user in your group.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, once it's got somebody's memories,
Yeah.
if it gets attacked, it can make a part of the moss turn into a copy of whoever it stole the memories from.
All right. Okay. So
Like a
doppelganger
little
style.
miniature doppelganger.
I like homunculus styling.
And it's referred to as a mossling. It remains attached to the parent moss, and it can cast any spells that the moss has absorbed.
So if you like target a wizard, you can suck out some of its spells and make a little mini moss wizard that like can fire the spells back. That's pretty cool.
Now, it doesn't say how big they are, but in the next paragraph, it says that you can eat the mossling, you get a save versus poison, and then you get the memories, including the spells. I can see that leading to some crazy hijinks.
Yeah.
If your group's got someone that's been a bit shady, their memories and their spells get stolen, someone else then eats that creature and ends up with the shady guy's memories of the day before, so he knows what the guy's been up to.
It's an interesting thing as well. If you're a bad guy and maybe you're looking to get some like info from someone and you're like, they'll never talk, lead them into the Obliviax and then you like eat it later on. Well, I must say there's one thing I'm disappointed with in this monster, and that's aside from the fact the slightly weird and wibbly like artwork, is the fact that it's listed also as being called Memory Moss. Now, Memory Moss is nowhere near as cool a name as Obliviax. Obliviax sounds like an 80s He-Man villain.
So what was it like the next time it turned up?
Okay, well, in the Second Ed Monstrous Compendium 2, again, it's described as a black moss with an evil nature, and it can steal memories from intelligent creatures. But it's described as specifically being a bane to wizards, and it gives you a little bit of a sort of advice on how to use it in combat. It can still sense people within 60 feet who are intelligent, and it attempts to steal their memories, but it's described as being quite selective. So it specifically targets like wizards and clerics and your spellcasters first before sort of like working its way down the tree, so to speak. We've got, it tells us here that if an Obliviax with stolen memories is attacked in one round, it forms part of itself into the tiny mossling. You can still eat it to regain the stolen memories. You still get a save versus poison. We're given a little bit more about the habitat and society. We're told it grows in tropical to temperate climates, but like it doesn't really like too moist an environment, so it doesn't grow in water or in the cold or anything like that. It's not uncommon to find patches on tree trunks, fallen logs, etc. The normal places you'd find moss, basically. While it does have intelligence and is aware of other mosses nearby, it doesn't act in concert with other like carnivorous mosses and intelligent mosses and stuff like that, because basically it doesn't like sharing. It wants all those sweet, sweet memories and spells to itself. Although small colonies of it can sometimes be found in tunnels and caverns. In the ecology section, we get another sort of little bit about, you can regain the memories by eating the moss. Anyone who gains spells by eating the Obliviax can cast them, but the memories fade after 24 hours. And we're told, as I suggested earlier, evil creatures sometimes transplant them near their lair, so it acts as a guardian. Obliviax powers can't penetrate lead, so the moss can be carried to the new location in a lead box. Spies use this lead box trick to snare secrets of unsuspecting victims. Apparently, you can also use it as part of like the ingredients in a potion of forgetfulness, and its spores can be distilled down into an elixir that restores previously lost memories. Okay, so in terms of using this in the game, I think this is a creature where if you want to use it as more than just like a sort of random like hazard with a bit of an interesting twist for people, you're really going to have to sort of expand on it a bit, because as we've just been sort of chatting to each other before we did this, as it is, it's really just like a moss with like one cool trick. You know, it steals spells, and you can eat you can eat the little mosslings to get the spells back. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's like a trap with a delusion of grandeur, really. But if you look into the idea of like memory stealing that's been done in like various other media, there's a lot of
interesting horoscope in horoscope.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting ways you can use theft of memory in a story.
I think what'll be a cool idea is, you know, those sort of like Ocean's 11 style films where you do like the heist and they're like, right, this is how the plan went down, and they sort of work it backwards. I can imagine starting off a session and you start off the players in somewhere random. A few of them have got like minor injuries, and you just like, or maybe you like finish off the last session, you all go to bed at the tavern or whatever. Then they wake up and it's like, you stood in the middle of like a burning building, like over someone with a sword, and then you sort of work backwards so they like piece together what happened during the day. And then at the end of that, they're sort of like, they're attacked by the Obliviax and they lose their memories.
Yeah, sort of dude, where's my car style.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that could work.
And I think it'd be quite cool because it's like a sort of investigation scenario, but it's like in reverse. And also, as you sort of play out sections of the day, I think the player characters could be a bit more sort of free to do what they want, because they know they're not going to die, because they're there sort of at the end. So maybe they can like afford, certainly in like slightly more like lethal, like old school games, they can afford to be a bit more sort of freewheeling and heroic because they sort of describe it. Because I mean, obviously, it would need some planning from the GM, because you'd have to sort of manoeuvre things a little bit and sort of massage the details. But I think if you kept sort of like the end sort of thing pretty vague, and then sort of like worked it backwards, and you got your player buy-in, that could be quite interesting. And obviously, you crown it off with, and then you remember like getting attacked by this black moss, and the next thing you know, you were sort of opening your eyes and you were stood on this burning building or whatever. So I think that could be quite cool. I think another interesting possibility is thinking about how all these memories and the absorption of them affects the actual creature, because it's implied it's intelligent, which means presumably, obviously we know in game terms that it just absorbs spells and that's all it does, it lets it cast spells. But if you extrapolate on that a bit and you think, well, if this creature's intelligent, presumably it's got its own memories because it's intelligent, how would that be impacted by absorbing the memories of others? Now, it's obviously capable to a lesser extent of becoming these people, because it can form the sort of mottlings and stuff like that. But you have to wonder, if it absorbed, say, the memories from 10 people, let's say, would it become like some weird, like, gestalt sort of personality of those memories mashed together? Because I think pretty much, by and large, we're sort of, the people we are is made up of, like, what memories we have.
See, I got the feeling that the moss itself, while yes, it would have this mash of 10 people's memories, it is moss, it doesn't really care, it doesn't think like a person. Whereas maybe the mosslings, I would make those 10 individual little creatures just for the simplicity of keeping track of who's got whose memory, unless I wanted to get really, really complicated with the whole player group mixing up each other's memories all the time.
See, I think you're absolutely right. And at the start, the moss, it's moss. It doesn't think like a human. But would it think like a human once it had human memories in it? Because the only reason it doesn't think like a human is because it isn't. But if you absorb like this sort of memory essence of these people, would you effectively become more like them?
Well, it doesn't affect anyone else for 24 hours, which sort of implies that it would take 24 hours for it to digest. So, yeah, maybe it does think like that human for those 24 hours to some degree, along with having its own agenda because it's defending itself.
Of course it is, yeah.
You'd like to think that if something did think like you, it would want to help you because you're you.
Yeah.
But
thing is though, if let's say I'm the person whose memory's been taken by the Obliviax, and the Obliviax is now thinking like me, and suddenly it's looking at another version of itself that's going to survive.
Are you implying that the Obliviax might want some extra dinners because it thinks like you do?
That's right, yeah. It'd be like, well, watching MasterChef and eating loads of food. But because let's say if I was in the place of the Obliviax and I find myself looking at like a better version of me, effectively, one that's going to last and go on, like, whereas after 24 hours I'm just going to go back to being mossed, I'm not sure I would want to help it out, to be perfectly honest.
Well, no, you probably wouldn't. But what I'm saying is you probably wouldn't be hungry enough to want to eat the next person that's coming along as well.
The thing I'm wondering is that if the moss absorbs these human characters, and presumably, like, it doesn't get to the end of 24 hours and, like, boom, all the memories are gone. Presumably they start sort of like fading away in 24 hours, just when they're already gone. Now, if you're thinking like a human and you've got used to it, maybe you like thinking like a human, and suddenly you like sense like your memory's fading and ebbing away, and you're going to go back to just being moss, and you're like, oh, the only way I can like extend this and like keep my level of intelligence is if I absorb some more memories. Might you not want to go out and do that? And I think there's a good concept for a horror session. I also think what could be quite interesting, obviously you probably wouldn't be able to do this in a campaign unless you did it as like a random like side thing, like, you know, maybe not all your players have turned up, is if you had the players like playing sort of like versions of their character, like, and they've heard about this like evil sort of like doppelganger or whatever of them that's knocking about, and then you slowly reveal that actually they're the Obliviax.
Yeah, that could work too.
And I mean, you could do that as a one shot, obviously, but you could also do it in a campaign. You just have like a random side like mission where like they find out at the end like they're the Obliviax, and then they can go back to playing like the proper version of their character the sort of week after. I think there's a lot you can do with like playing on memory, and also we know there's a lot of like sci-fi games, like transhuman games, where you can like download your memories into stuff and you can change bodies and stuff like that. But I think it's an interesting thing to potentially play with in D&D, but as we've said, you really have to sort of extend this creature a bit to get the most out of it. Although if you do just want to use it as like some weird like trap monster, knock yourself out, you can certainly do that. But I think that's about it for our show on the Obliviax. Yep. Hopefully we've given you some ideas. If you've got any ideas for how you'd use them in your game, or perhaps you want to call in and talk to us about something else, or give us some suggestions for future episodes, there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can drop us a voicemail message using the SpeakPipe website. There's a link in the description below. Or if you're having trouble with that, some people have said they have been doing, especially on mobiles, we still have our old Anchor account that's active. If you go on Google and type in Anchor plus Red Dice Diaries, then you'll find that, and you can leave us a voicemail on there. Alternatively, you can send us an email, perhaps with an audio file attached, to rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. Until we speak to you again, take care, stay safe, and happy gaming.
Bye.